Today, I want to talk about two accidents that had many killed in garment factories in India. Two accidents that involved apparel manufacturing and only happened in December 2019 and February 2020. I want to warn you in advance that this is a sensitive video describing death and injuries of workers of garment factories and sweatshops in India, specifically in the example of the two accidents that I mentioned above, so that you can understand how important it is to protect workers' rights and first and foremost, workers' safety at workplaces in the fast fashion industry. Hello everyone, this is Asel Sorbekaba and welcome to my channel where I help you understand matters of fast fashion and sustainable development the legal way. So this channel is all things fast fashion and fashion where I attempt to uncover the other face of the fast fashion industry. First, I want to talk about the accident that took place on the 8th of December 2019 in Delhi, India's capital, involving a multi-story building where workers would be making caps, school bags, luggage bags, handbags, those types of things. The fire started at night in the lower story and spread to the upper floors where more than 100 people were sleeping, among which there were children. So from this piece of information, you have to extract three important details. First, that the fire started at night, and the second, that it actually involved 100 people that were sleeping inside in that garment factory, and third, that there were children in that number. Over 40 people died in that factory. More than 60 had been rescued. A local fire chief told BBC Hindi on the day of the accident, at the time of the accident, that the building did not have a proper fire license and was operating illegally as a factory. Severe safety violations hindered workers from leaving the factory safely. One of the two staircases in the building was reportedly blocked. The same can be said about the windows and the accessible exit. The windows were barred and the accessible exit was locked. Furthermore, this four-story residential building was one of the several thousand ones in the northern Delhi that had been illegally converted into a factory, and that it was running without a license. Now let's talk about the moment when the firemen came to rescue the people. Unfortunately, rescue operations were further hampered by the narrow streets of the area in which the factory was located, as the factory was located in the middle of alleyways and very narrow pathways to get through. I would like you to imagine a place where buildings were built so close to each other and with pathways that were so narrow that, it would be, hindering any, operation, any going to that place. And so basically that was in a very densely located, built area where the fire happened. Let's discuss the question of compensation post-factum, post-accident. So the Delhi government announced that it would pay around 12,700 euros, which would be around 13,500, 14,000 US dollars as compensation to the families of the deceased, and 1,270 euros, or the equivalent of 1,350, 1,400 US dollars to the injured, and made also commitment that it would cover medical expenses of the latter, of the injured workers. I have a question to ask. Do you think that these sums are enough to, help the families of the deceased and to give some relief to the sufferings of the injured and also, help them with their medical expenses? According to the Clean Clothes campaign, while these swift announcements are commendable, they are temporary measures that do not do full justice to the workers' needs. Additionally, compensation arrangements should take into account workers' pain and suffering. But you know what? At the end of the day, it actually matters little as to whether the compensation was made proper or not, because people have lost their lives. How about that? And they will keep on losing until fashion business changes its pattern. The big issue in this December 2019 fire accident is whether fast fashion brands were involved or not. because it remains unclear whether the factory was producing for export or the growing internal Indian consumer market. Irrespective of who placed the orders in the factory, I think that they should take the responsibility to compensate the workers who suffered making their products. But to me personally, most likely it may have involved allegedly some foreign fashion brand, either directly or indirectly through a main supplier who may have hired this very factory as its subcontractor. And another possible scenario is that this subcontractor, another one, not the factory that was involved in this accident that got burned down, but another factory which was allegedly could have been a subcontractor hired this factory in question involved in the fire as its subcontractor. So possibly we could be dealing with a situation involving fashion brand for an international brand, then its main factory in India. And this very, main factory in India might have hired another, factory, which might have in its turn hired this very, factory in question, because clearly it was not possible to trace, find out, well, for whom they were actually producing. They didn't know if it was for the internal market or international market. My observations and research on this accident have revealed that there were obvious issues of child labor, as in kids being trapped and some of which died. So issue number one, obvious child labor. The second issue is major issues of weak occupational safety and health measures, as in weak, or practically non-existent fire and safety protection measures, because as I said, the exit was locked, the windows were barred, stuff like that. And the third one, possible overtime work, because workers were sleeping in there, which is the reason why, they were trapped and they couldn't get out. It was at night that the accident happened. Possibly this was a case of, not really overtime, but that, they had some internal arrangement with the owner of the garment factory that they would be sleeping there and then, working. They must have had this kind of arrangement, but we cannot exclude overtime as well. I mean, an overtime work is not an issue in itself as such, but it becomes a problem when it's, linked to situations when workers would have to, sacrifice their sleep and, be at work in order to finish, enormous amounts of pieces for, in this case, clothes, because, we know that they work by piece, they earn by piece mostly, and that they would need to, work at nights and then, take some naps and then, be at workplace to, finish the workload, and that they would be paid the same amount of money, wage, as if they would be working normal hours. But then, overtime, if it's not paid, if you don't get extra money for your overtime, then it becomes an issue. Furthermore, if workers were sleeping at the factory because they could not afford housing or transportation costs, then this tragedy sheds a light on the poverty wages pervasive throughout the industrial sector, the garment sector of India, especially among vulnerable groups such as migrant workers and minors. My fourth observation regarding this accident is that it touched upon the rights of migrant workers and, also rights of children. And my fifth observation that I can deduce from the facts of this accident is that it can have to do with protection of the rights of religious minorities of India. Yes, as I mentioned, it has to do with the protection of migrant rights, as I said above on the fourth observation. But pretty much everyone that was working in that factory was a Muslim Indian. And you know that Muslim Indians in India are a religious minority. These migrant Muslim workers came from farthest, regions of India to work in that city and to make a living. And it actually has to do, at least to me, with the inability of the religious minorities in India, especially that of Muslim Indians, to be able to provide for themselves sufficiently enough, because at the end of the day they are a minority in India, and they always experience these difficulties when it comes to workplace and stuff. So it's a circumstantial thing that they experience as a religious minority in a big country that practices Hinduism as a religion. And last but not least, my sixth point is about compensation to the victims' families and victims, as in injured people, workers. So as I said before, the compensation that was promised, I hope they were given. It was considered low even by experts. And it also is not, sufficient, because it does not involve long-term funds. The government made a good gesture. Those are governmental compensation payments. The promise that was made was by the government, but still it could have been higher, because, the losses were here, right? Here, here, here. And to me, and to experts, the payment of compensation, the amounts were quite here. So there's a huge gap between them. Now let's talk about the second accident, the accident that happened on the 8th of February 2020. Yes, I just said 2020, so that is less than a year ago. This one happened in one of the major denim factories of India, and this actually involved some of the world's most major, fast fashion brands that you can think of, that you know of. A fire in the two-story Nandam denim factory in the Indian city of Ahmedabad at night killed 10 workers. According to media reports, the high death toll was caused by severe safety defects in the factory. This fire thereby painfully shows the need for concerted preventive measures throughout India's garment factory. And now back to what I said, that this has to do with major international fashion brands. Indeed, the Nandam denim factory counted among its clients international, European, and US brands. According to the textileexcellence.com, Nandam says it supplies jeans, denim, and other garments to more than 20 global brands, including popular retailers like Target and Taylor, Mango, and Wrangler. Regarding Wrangler, it said that its sister company supplies to Walmart, and other sources mentioned H&M and Zara. Zara, specifically said that it was actually, buying jeans, denim for its, sister company, smaller Inditex company, Lefties. It's called Lefties. Voila, so you have, names of these international brands that were actually, buyers of the Nandam denim factory, which had to experience a major fire that had around 10 people dead in 2020. And here is another additional information. So the factory on its website claims to be one of the world's largest integrated denim fabric makers, and on a now removed page, named major international apparel companies, including, we already mentioned that, but for ease of reference, I will name them again. Wrangler, Zara, Joey Fresh, Target, VF Corp, Ralph Lauren, and Primark as its buyers. Most of these companies, however, have denied a recent sourcing relationship with the factory, and the factory itself has indicated then that this unit primarily produced for the local Indian market. Despite these denials, the US database Import Genius shows several recent shipments coming from the factory. However, the Nandam denim factory was clearly no hidden factory far away from the purview of international companies and auditing firms. The fact that even such a large internationally producing factory can turn out to maintain units that are obvious death traps is a bad sign for the safety of the many subcontracting and local producers in the country. Unlike the previous accident that we just discussed, this one started at around 6:30 p.m. So let's say a normal working time, right? It started at the shirting department of the two-story factory where over 60 laborers were present on the first floor. And while many laborers managed to escape, a few were stranded on the first floor where there was no ventilation. Media reported that there was only one exit, accessible by a ladder, and that there was no alarm system. So as you can see, the scenario is pretty much the same, that occupational safety and health measures were clearly weak, to the point of not being non-existent, and that, the safety was compromised. The production was a priority there rather than everything else. My observations following the research on the denim factory fire accident revealed to me that, there was, first of all, an issue of occupational safety and health, as in fire and safety measures being weak. That's number one. Number two, denial of Western brands of their involvement with this, death toll, because, hey, it is 2020, right? And they cannot afford themselves another shaky reputation. And I have been to H&M and Zara today with a friend. And it's all glossy and all that, right? The Swiss-based shops and, these clothes, how they were nicely put and all that. But wait until you hear that it had a relation with this denim factory in 2020. Hello? Meaning that these international brands were buyers from this, denim factory that had, at 6:30 p.m., an accident which led to 10 people dying, that just burned there. And as I mentioned previously, this was not just some random, sweatshop or subcontractor company, second-rate factory, etc. This was a nicely made, nicely built denim factory, that had openly, put information regarding its Western buyers. And, there was no secret about that. And how can you, how can you actually do business with factories that do not correspond to international safety standards? How can you, in the first place? Do you not check them? Do you not send, auditing firms? Do you not send experts, etc.? So the big question is, how can this happen in 2020 with a well-reputed and nicely made factory? A factory that openly and legally does business with international world brands. Because it is a question of great concern how apparent safety violations in such a major factory have gone under radar of government institutions and international brands themselves. This means that the supply chain monitoring systems of the major companies sourcing from this factory, usually carried out through commercial auditing firms, have all failed to either detect or remediate the lack of sufficient and safe exits and other safety measures in the factory. So that's my issue and observation number two, that fashion brands that were and I think still are, buyers, clients of this denim factory, they can deny any kind of responsibility, any kind of connection, where the signs of them, being their clients, it's actually proven out there. And even if they try to hide, try to, remove a page on, buyer's information and stuff, it's all out there. So it's just mind-boggling how it can happen in 2020, how brands can deny their responsibility, at least their share of responsibility. And my observation number three is about the question of compensation, as in the previous case. So the compensation promised by the factory was only 13,000 euros per person. That is about 14,500 US dollars. Very low, even if it's per person, right? So they said also that they would make a commitment to employ deceased workers' family members. Yes, in the factory where their family members died. And I'm surprised as to how they could be smart to, come up with this idea of hiring family members of the deceased. And I mean, who would ever want to work at a place that killed their close ones, right? It is kind of like a ridiculous promise, if you ask me, and only a person at the poverty line would agree to do that. And I'm sure that, even those ones would just say, what, why don't you just, go about your business? Why don't you just, do something better to come out of the situation and to, be more responsible. And I think that the factory must be sued for millions, so must the brands also be sued. Because unlike in the previous garment factory accident of December 2019, in this one that happened in February 2020, we know clearly that, and it's also documented that this denim factory, was a supply chain of fashion brands, and the connection is clear right there. So the brand's involvement is also, right there. So brands need to be sued as well. What is it here to conclude? I mean, I guess it's quite clear how things are, right? How the system of the fast fashion industry, how the fast fashion industry operates, is unsustainable in all aspects of the world. And this time, when it comes to accidents and garment, factories doing business, that the fast fashion industry can be responsible for human life and limb. What I have observed from the two accidents following my research. Well, from the December 2019 accident, I made a personal observation that allegedly the burned factory could have allegedly been a subcontractor or even a subcontractor, in which case it would be highly unlikely to trace foreign fashion brands. And this kind of accident with a garment factory just goes on to show that whereas a subcontractor can be hired, or that a subcontractor can be hired, that we cannot know of involvement of international or foreign fashion brands. So that you cannot, at the very least, name and shame these brands because you cannot prove the link. There must have been a link between some brands and this factory. They must have been not, but the point is that it has been proven that when most likely when orders are so high as when the capacity of the main factory does not permit it to finish it on time, they just go on to hire subcontractors, and subcontractors may actually hire somebody else, to do the job. So it's an ongoing chain, and it has been, yes, proven that, main factories, they can hire subcontractors because they are not able to finish the workload on time. Because, as we know, the first key point of fast fashion is that, it produces so many collections per year, and and also that the time span, the production span, the period for production is very low, and that within 10 days you can start sewing, and then from day one you can start sewing, and then on day 10, something like that, this piece of cloth can be already at the shop. So yes, we cannot exclude the fact that allegedly there could have been some involvement of another factory, main factory, which must have hired this factory in Delhi. Because regarding naming and shaming of fashion brands, I want to come back to that. Naming and shaming is a good tool, because sometimes public opinion and public judgment is way stronger, especially when it comes to world-renowned international brands and companies. And from the February 2020 accident, I made a conclusion. I came to an understanding that even when fast fashion brands can be traced as former or current buyers of a factory in question, even if the company is well reputed and complies with international standards on safety and standards, etc., and that this factory in question openly indicates names of fashion brands, that they can prove that they do business with these brands, it can be quite difficult to bring forward the question of responsibility of these fashion brands, and also the question of compensation, who pays, how much and stuff, especially who pays, So that's an interesting thing to notice. You cannot always, it seems, at least as a starting point, in the beginning, you cannot, bring them, hold them accountable. And additionally, I want to say that I get that the Corona time came to reign, and the world attention, including that of NGOs in the field of fast fashion industry compliance and responsibility, then shifted to the current 19 time and the issues that come with it, as in suspension of orders and garment production and manufacturing reduction. But it would thus be interesting, at least for me personally, to see any progression in terms of bringing justice in favor of victims' families, and victims in case of injured workers. I want to see how this question of responsibility and compensation will play out, and what will be the continuation of these two stories. And I will definitely do my best to inform you about this subject in the coming videos. That's all for today. For videos on fast fashion and matters of sustainable development, subscribe to my channel and join me every Sunday, where I will post similar videos that could be of interest to you. And also don't forget to smash the like button and leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and take care, and see you next Sunday. Bye.